All right, so today I thought I would go back over and dive in a little deeper to some of the futuristic vehicle design and talk about some further processing techniques you might do. So something I like to do after I finish a piece for my demo reel or after I finish a project is number one, I like to, any of the final assets, so anything from my sound design sessions, I will make sure that I go and then I export the final work as an asset that I can then add back into my personal sound library so that moving forward, I can call in those finished assets again and then, hopefully use them in other future projects as part of other things. So that's just creating good value for yourself when you go through your project and you export those final assets. I think that's a pretty strong thing to incorporate into your workflow. Of course, if you're doing sound assets for games, then you kind of already have that just kind of built in because you're making individual pieces. But do make sure you take those and then somehow incorporate them back into your larger sound library. Now, in addition to that, you can take it a step further. So at times, you may not have a whole lot of anything objective that has a deadline that you may need to be working on. So usually when I'm in that situation, that's some time that I would just do some free-form sound design, just kind of creating source material and that sort of thing. So one really extremely useful strategy for creating new source material that doesn't necessarily have to rely on anything visual or anything linear or any kind of timing is when you're done with a project, take some of the sound design sessions that you used and turn those into templates. So save those out as templates so that you can continue iterating and exploring some of those ideas beyond the constraints that you may originally have started with. So that's what I'm doing here. That's what I'm showing you with this session. This is a template session, or at least it's pieces of 3 different template sessions. I had to combine them to make it a little easier. But these template sessions I created so that I could then go on and make other interesting sounds based on the initial idea for that jet sound. And some of it, none of it will sound really like jets at all. It's going to sound wildly different. And then this is something that I was then able to take these ideas, and I did actually end up making a rather sizable library out of this, which I hope to make available. So in any case, let's jump into this, okay? So I'm going to show you a couple different examples. I couldn't show you the whole thing because, again, it's almost a full library. And when I say that, I'm going to say about 300 to 400 sounds, individual assets that I created through this process. And it was a process I did maybe over the course of about a week or two when I had spare time. So again, it's just look at how you can be efficient when it doesn't really involve you going out of your way too often. So being 100% efficient all the time is not, that's certainly not the most important thing always. But when there's no drawback to taking measures to kind of ensure that, then, why not? So I'm looking at the layers. So here's the first effect I'm going to show you. And really what I want to focus on, I am going to, open up some plugins like I normally do and show you what the processing is looking like. But I have some broader concepts here that I just kind of wanted to showcase. So this first one was doing some side chaining. So actually, I got a lot of ideas for side chaining. I'm going to have to come back and really visit side chaining properly. But let's just show you my first layer here for this iteration of like a futuristic jet sound. If you didn't see the original video. Yeah, you should probably go back and watch that. It might help for context. But so Jet Whoosh 4, okay? So this is just the car passby by itself, which I'm just going to mute. I'm just going to mute this one here for now and bypass that. Right? So we got 9 of those, all different, just the same as the ones I used in the futuristic sound design, the workshop where I have the StarCraft example. So what I put on here first is Snap Heap. So Snap Heap is going to allow you to do a lot of really interesting effects automation. It's essentially like a host for these little snap-in plugins. So each one of these is kind of its own little software plugin. And as the host, you have access to some LFOs, some envelope followers, MIDI triggers, and all kinds of different ways to manipulate and control your sounds and your plugin inserts. So what I really want to say here that I really enjoy about this Snap Heap, or actually it's the Kilohertz software bundle, is all this functionality. And the fact that you have all the plugins individually that you can use as inserts, but the additional functionality of these macros, the LFOs, the envelopes that you can assign to plugins is something that's really sorely missing natively in Pro Tools. So Logic does have it has the smart, I believe they're called smart knobs, but this functionality with this set of plugins, it really adds something that actually, we talk about having tools that you already have access to built into your DAW. Pro Tools does not have these in here, so this is a very valuable purchase if you are working in Pro Tools. It's going to allow you to do things that you just can't do natively. Okay, so I'm going to get off of my. I'm really about to start a Pro Tools rant right now, so I don't want to do that. Because as you see, I am using it, so I can't complain too much, certainly. But what this is doing is actually sometimes what I'll do when I'm starting off trying to get some ideas is I'll definitely flip through the presets. If you hear something that, I generally start off with, okay, I'm going to use this. I'm going to make something that sounds gritty or mechanical, right? So then I'll flip through my presets, find something that kind of catches my ear. And then from there, I'll tweak what's in the preset. So that's kind of a time saver. You don't always need to start from scratch. I don't know. I think there's sometimes a mindset out there that unless you start all the way from scratch, then it's like not your creative process. This is just kind of allowing you to focus on a bigger picture when you go with this method. So with that on, it's not doing like a ton, but it's got all these different series of comb filters, and I just kind of had a really interesting sound to it when I tried it initially. All right, so we get the idea. Now here's where this is the idea that I wanted to try out. So I have this layer down here, which I have to bypass. I have Multipass, which is a multi-band version of Snap Heap, which we'll get into this in a minute here. But let me bypass it for now. So down here, I have this layer. Let me just back it up to where it makes sense. All right, so you'd never guess what that is, but it's a back massage, like a professional, like one that like a chiropractor would have, and it's sitting on top of a metal locker, and it's just vibrating. So that actually sounds like a motor or like an engine, like a really rough sounding engine. We'll talk more about that later. There's, I have some really cool things that I do with this. But for now, what I have happening is I have Multipass on here, and the envelope follower is set. This is tricky. It's kind of not obvious in a way, but you can drive, you can drive a bus into Multipass. So you can use it. You can have a side chain actually drive the envelopes section. So that's what I'm doing. I have under source right here. See, I have it set to external. So main would be whatever's on the main track playlist, but external is whatever you feed in from your key input in Pro Tools here. So I have bus 3, right? Not obvious because you'd be looking for the word sidechain, and that word here is equivalent to external. So in terms of effects, I've got a chorus, a comb filter, and then disperser. And then I'm using, because this is the multi-band version, gain for all 3. And then whenever, okay, so you see there's my send going out, of course. So it's pre-fader send so that I can mute and solo these without with still being able to hear the effect of the envelope follower. All right. So let's just take a listen to what it's doing now. So this is just the motor layer by itself, of course. Yep, I'm good. So there, and you can even watch it here. And the great thing is you can even adjust like how closely it follows it. So if I did, adjust these, you can make it, a little grittier and things like that. Right? I'll leave it about where I had it set. Now what I'm driving with this envelope here, this one, is I'm driving the gain equally on all 3 bands. But you can imagine, without even going further in depth, you can imagine, driving all 3 of these bands all differently. And I'll tell you the truth of why I didn't probably do anything crazier is because I was running the session at 192. So it was bogging down my computer a lot probably. But you could do like some really insane stuff with the envelope follower in here and, the multi-band and all that. But we'll expand on that another time, I'm sure. Now, what other things I'm driving are the depth and the chorus effect, and then the frequency of the comb filter. So maybe, can I mute these ones? I think so. Right? And then disperser on the lower frequencies. And of course, let's hear the whole thing together, Yeah. Go to this one. All right. So now these 2 are feeding out to a master or an effect aux. So if I go to that, I'm doing some things to glue them together. I have Triad from Unfiltered Audio, which is actually a very similar concept to what you'd be doing with the snap heap with the kilohertz. So this, again, I started off a preset, and what we have happening is we have a comb filter with the frequency being modulated. So there's with that on, off, on, right? So just kind of wild, almost like, a little glitchy, it's gritty, very kind of mechanically, sounding in a way. And then manipulator, which I've talked about a great deal in the prior video. I'm just doing a little weird stuff with the pitch. So I just kind of want to add a more tonal element to it. That's mixed in at about 34%. That's what I landed on. Traveler. So this is to create some additional movement there, okay? Because I'm kind of creating vehicle pass-bys here, if you want to think of it that way. So mostly for the Doppler effect, don't have the attenuation turned up a whole lot. So a little bit of dampening going on there. And then I'm automating this. So the travel time or the manual modulation is evident right here. So I'm just following the basically the duration of these initial whoosh sounds for the travel distance. And then I'm just got my mastering plugin on here, just a little additional kind of balancing. Nothing, I want to save my discussion time for more important stuff. But so here's it all put together. I'll pick one of these longer ones too. So this one definitely falls more on a very strange or kind of wild type of side as far as the processing goes. So it's definitely a different context than what the original jet whooshing futuristic vehicle sound was. All right, so we're going to hide these up. And I did some other things similar to that with the envelope follower. But the more I think about it, the more I just need to do a whole video just talking about envelope followers. So let's move to the next idea or the next concept here. So I'm still taking those original 9 whooshes and processing them, in different fashion. But this one, I'm not even sure. I was just sitting at my desk one day in between some of the classes that I was, scheduled to teach. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool to like combine just a massive number of different reverbs and have it so that the reverb you hear at the start, it eventually like morphs into the other reverbs. And I was like, how could I do that? And kind of to really explain that fully, basically each one of these you see right here, these reverb aux tracks, verb 1 through 6, it's all based around a different, completely different reverb plugin. So verb 1 is this stereo room reverb by Eventide. Not a whole lot that I'm going to say about the specific parameters here, but we'll have a listen to it. And then this one, number 2 is Black Hole. Number 3, what is this? What is this guy? Little Plate. And then this one, Fission. So Fission, again, there's a lot you could say about Fission, but it allows you to essentially apply different effects to the transient and then the transient and then the tonal properties, I guess. So anyway, we got different reverbs. So there's a Spring, Room MS by Brainworks. Now, not any individual one. I cannot possibly talk about all the parameters, all the settings I have for those. But the idea is taking more than one reverb that you like and having them all kind of not feed into each other, but having them morph from one to the next. So how I accomplish this, you know what? It could be a good idea if we just hear it first so that you can understand. Okay, let's do a longer one. All right, so it's definitely a pretty wild sounding effect, and I made a lot of different variations on this process, but let me flip to the mix window. I think that'll make for a better presentation here. And okay, so let's take a look at our 6 reverbs. Okay, so I already went through the actual reverbs, but let's see what else is happening. So I have some modulation on each of these. So this one's got a phaser. This one's got Echo Boy. Let me zoom out so you can actually see those. Another phase distortion. So I was like, hey, let's have a different type of modulation on each one of these. And I just kind of toyed around until it felt interesting. And then in addition to that modulation, we have Little Altar Boy, 100% wet. And then as each reverb, as they progress, so this one is up 2 pitch informats. And then it just continues. So this one's 4, and then 6, 8, 10, and down the line. All right. So that was kind of a cool idea. I was like, I want them to travel up in pitch so that it's not just, so there's not a sense of any kind of staleness with it. Additionally, Filter Freak, because you're dealing with so many reverbs, they're all going to be on top of each other. So how do I kind of get the most out of all of them? I have these 3 set up with low pass filters, and then come on, man, these ones with high pass filters. All right, and then this one has some phase mistress on there, so some phasers. So those are the 2 effects I chose for that. And they go into Black Hole there. Now, here's the things I haven't discussed is at the end of all these processing chains, you see Snap Heap, which actually it was I put that on there and I was like, take it or leave it. But I'm just doing the envelope follower. So I'm using the envelope of this track here. So the Jet Whoosh original layer. I'm using that envelope to basically control the output gain of all of the reverbs. So I have it bypassed currently, but you can see there it is moving down there. Okay. Excuse me. So let's keep that off. Now here's the important thing is that there's a delay at the end of each of these chains. So not a delay, it's going to have any feedback, but I'm delaying the signal. So when the reverb comes out, gets all the processing, and then hits before it comes out, the signal gets delayed, and then each one is delayed just a little bit more, right? So that kind of gives the impression that the reverb is evolving over time, right? So that's why if you watch the meters here, you'll see that you can, I mean, you'll hear it obviously, but you can see it happening in order. All right. Cool. Let me do that one more time. Now, what's going on here? Oh, see, that one, I was confused for a second because I forgot to bypass that. But here, let's hear it one more time. Okay. So, of course, then the other end of that is having them die out, sequentially. So if I put on snap heap, which is the envelope follower, so it's a little bit more of a subdued effect there. And then I also have a snap heap on the final bus out. Okay. I can turn off snap heap entirely on these, leave it on the master. So it's a pretty it's definitely an interesting effect there. All right, so we'll just take one last quick look at this. I'll do it all the way through. So first, with none of the envelope followers turned on, which is going to be much more crazy effect. So here's that. All right, then we'll go on to put snap heap on the layers. All right, so again, all of those are following whatever's going on here. So the volume envelope, basically modulating the volume envelope of the reverbs before they come out. That way that they don't get out of control as easy as they did without it. And then you can take it or leave it on the master bus, but it's just an additional layer of control of that volume. So that was, I think I had that on there to kind of avoid some of the reverbs once they came back around, jumping up in level. I think that will about wrap it up here for this one. Have some additional things here that I'll talk about, but we will save that. We'll save that for the next one. Keep things a little concise here. So make sure you check back for that. And again, like I mentioned, I am kind of working on a library out of this content. So what my idea is, because I want to keep making these videos as much as I can, I'll make some of them, they may come concurrently with a library. So if you like the videos and you want to, actually support what I'm doing with these, the instructional component of it, then the library will be available, that you can buy it, and that will be a form of support for me if you want to. But yeah, so hopefully everyone's doing well. Take care of yourselves, and we will see you next time.